Hi, and welcome to the second part of our video about the PRG 270. In this part, we're going to cover the protract functions of this watch, which means the compass, the barometer with thermometer, and the altimeter. Also, we're going to cover the log function, which I skipped in that part because it's directly connected to the altimeter. But before that, I needed to cover one more thing that I forgot in the previous video, and that's the auto EL. So this watch has a backlight that you turn on by pressing the light button, as you can see. However, you can also turn on the auto EL by pressing, but you need to be in the home time, by pressing and holding the light button for more than 3 seconds. And as you will notice, next to the seconds, there's going to be a little LT there. The LT showed up, and that means that if you keep this watch level and you tilt it to your face, the light is going to come on. Now, it doesn't work now because this watch, because it's solar, and you can see the solar panel in this outer ring, it can detect when it's in the dark and when it's in the light. So if we turn off the light in this room, put it level and tilt it, the light will come on, as you can see. So let's do that again. So level, tilt it to your face, and it works. When the light is on, naturally it's not going to work, so it saves battery and it doesn't work unless it's necessary. And that's it. Now back to the protract functions. The first function that we're going to cover, and as you can see on all protract models, you have dedicated buttons for each one of these. So the first is the compass. To enter the compass, you simply press the comp button. And once you've pressed it, the compass has activated. And now this watch, like I said, compared to the old generation, doesn't use a duplex LCD with the lines across the screen, but you need to look at this outer ring. So as you can see, these 3 dots represent the north, and the rest of these represent other sides of the world. So this is south, this is east, and this is west. And the compass will continue reading for 60 seconds every second. So it's very sensitive and it's pretty precise. And as you can see, it's really working okay. Now, my watch is a bit tilted upwards, so it's actually working better when you keep it level. But it doesn't matter, even like this, it works great. Over here, it's showing you which direction you're pointing at and the degrees where you're pointing at. However, this watch also has the bearing function. What that means is that you don't have to remember this when you're, let's say, traveling somewhere. And as you can see, the compass just stopped working because 60 seconds passed. You simply press the comp again and another cycle is going to begin. So whenever you press this, like you can press it right now, and now another 60 seconds cycle is going to start. Okay, so let's say you want to travel in that direction there. You simply, you don't have to remember this number and this direction, but when you point your watch to where you want to go, simply pressing the adjust button will store that direction in the watch. And as you can see, the compass changed, and now it shows only these 3 dots which represent north, and it shows only one more dot, and that dot is your bearing or the direction where you want to go. So if you turn this way, it's going to tell you that you need to turn that way to go back. So you can always go to the direction where you desire, and it's a really cool function. And I wanted to show this to you because I had a case where a guy thought that his compass was broken because it showed something like this, like tilted only the north and one more, and he thought that the other sides of the world didn't work, but he had this bearing function activated. So anyways, you can exit the compass and go back to the compass, and the bearing is still going to be stored here. Also, resetting the compass, like restarting the compass, will not change this. So you'll always have this bearing stored until you clear it. To clear it, you press the adjust button. And now it's cleared, and as you can see, the compass resumed its normal operation where it shows all the sides of the world, and the direction where you're pointing is written in letters instead of the degrees that have been stored. And like in all functions, the current time is visible here. Now, the other thing that we're going to cover with the compass is the compass calibration, and in it you have the magnetic declination. So first we're going to calibrate the compass. To calibrate, you press and hold the adjust button. And there, once you've entered the calibration, to start the calibration, you keep the watch level and you press the comp button. But I'm going to do it like this because we have to turn it 180 degrees. So once you hold it level and it says direction 1, you press the comp button, and once it calibrated, it said turn 180 degrees. So now you turn 180 degrees, and again you press the COM button, and if everything is okay, it's going to write okay. If it's not okay, it's going to write an error, or ERR. Now we're going to repeat it on this side too, so you can see when it says to turn 180. Okay, calibrate 1, you press comp. Once it calibrated, it says turn 180 degrees. You turn 180 degrees, press comp. It writes okay, and you've calibrated your compass. Okay, one more thing that you can do once you've calibrated, or once you go into the calibration mode. If you press mode button, it's going to go from calibration to magnetic declination, like we said. And this declination is the difference in degrees between magnetic north and true north, because some maps have true north written on them, and when they do, usually in the bottom of the map or somewhere on the map, they state what magnetic declination they're based on. And this is usually topographic maps, which are very detailed. So if you have that kind of map that has a magnetic declination written on it, you simply go into this mode, and then you set up you set the watch up the way it's written on the map, whether it's east or west, and whatever degrees are written on the map. That way, the reading of the watch is going to be much more accurate when you transfer it to the map. And that's it. Once you've done all this, you press the adjust, and you're back into the compass. And that's it when it comes to the compass. The next function is the barometer. Pressing the baro enters the barometer, and as you can see, it writes the atmospheric pressure here, and over here it writes the temperature. Now the thermometer is pretty okay, but in order for you to read the accurate atmospheric temperature, you need to take the watch off for at least 10 or 15 minutes. Because the heat from your wrist is going to transfer to the watch, and this is not going to be accurate unless you've taken off the watch. The barometric pressure is going to be okay, so you can leave it on your wrist. Now, this is one of the most useful functions. Why? Well, because you can see whether the weather is going to go bad or good based on these readings. As you can see, this watch over here displays the tendency of the last reading. Now, each one of these dots represents 2 hours. So this is actually the last 42 hours. And as you can see, over here, the barometric pressure has the tendency of going up, which means that the weather was clearing. So it was probably bad here, and it moved up here, so it means that everything's going to be okay. If you see a downward curve, that means that the pressure is dropping, which means that you're going to have rain or storm or something like that. And one more thing to note when it comes to the barometric pressure reading is this scale on the side here. What this shows is actually the difference between the current reading compared to the last reading that the watch did. So as you can see, it goes from 0 to +10 or from 0 to -10, and is displayed with these dots here. So this dot is displaying -1 or -2. Actually, it's more like -1, and that means that the barometric pressure the reading that we're taking right now is -1 hectopascal compared to the last reading that the watch did. This is also one of the tools to help you determine the tendency of the pressure, whether it's going up or down, to help you predict the weather. And there's also one more mode while in the barometer. Like this watch is going to read the pressure for 5 seconds for the first 3 minutes, and then after that it's gonna switch to reading every 2 minutes, but it's gonna do it for another hour, and after that it's gonna go back to the timekeeping mode. Unless you press the baro, just like compass, it's gonna restart the cycle. However, what you can do is by pressing and holding the barometer button, you can activate this info, and once it writes info on, you can see this little baro written on the screen. What this means is that you've just activated the bad weather alarm, and in this mode the watch is going to read barometric pressure every 2 minutes for the next 24 hours. And this display, as you can see, will now display the last 22 hours instead of 42. And the space that is reserved here is reserved for a tendency arrow. So if the watch detects, when in this mode, if the watch detects a sudden increase or decrease in pressure, it's going to start beeping, and it's going to draw a line here, an arrow here, and I'll put the symbols that are possible here, and you're going to be able to see whether the bad weather is coming or whether the weather is about to clear. And the cool thing about this function is that once you activate it like this, for the next 24 hours, it's going to work no matter what you do with the watch. So you can go back to the timekeeping mode, and as long as you can see this baro written here, the watch in the background takes readings every 2 minutes, and in case there is a sudden change in pressure, it's going to start beeping, and it's going to notify you of where the pressure is going, up or down. And that's one of the cooler features of this watch. Okay, back to the barometer. You turn it off. Either it's going to turn off by itself after 24 hours, or you can turn it off by pressing and holding the baro until it turns off. And one more thing to note is that this function works best if you're stationary or if you're not changing your elevation, because if you change your elevation, the pressure is going to change as well, and then it might not read the pressure correct. I mean, it's going to read the pressure correctly, but the change in pressure might be due to the elevation and not worsening of the weather. Okay, and one more thing about the barometer that we want to cover is the adjusting or the calibration. So to calibrate the barometer and the thermometer, you press and hold the adjust button, and once it enters this mode, you can change the temperature first with these two buttons. So let's say if you have a very precise thermometer and a barometer, you can adjust the watch accordingly. And pressing the mode, you move to the barometer. Also, you can change the pressure, and that's it when it comes to the barometer. To exit the adjusting mode or the calibration, you press the adjust mode, and to exit the barometer, you press the mode. And the last function that we have to cover is the altimeter. So to activate the altimeter, you just simply press the Alti button, and it goes into the altimeter. Now the watch is going to take a reading once a second for the first minute, and after that it's going to switch to one of the modes that you selected. And one mode is that it can read for every 5 seconds for another hour, or you can switch it to a mode where it's going to take readings every 2 minutes for the next 12 hours. And to select that, you need to go into the calibration mode of the altimeter. So pressing and holding the adjust button, you enter the calibration mode, where you can first calibrate the altitude. And this is you're supposed to do this whenever you start a hike, because the altimeter is actually counting, it's calculating the altitude based on barometric pressure. So whenever there's a change in weather, this is not going to be correct. So whenever you're starting a hike, or you're starting your mountain climb or anything, you need to set this up to a value that you know. Let's say where you start, if there's a sign that sets what elevation you're on, or if you're using a topographic map or anything, you should store this altitude before you start your climb. And then pressing the mode button asks you what interval you want the altimeter to work. So this is the one that I said that takes readings every 2 minutes for the next 12 hours, or you can change them by this lower button. You can go to 5 seconds for the next hour. So whichever one you want, you select it here. So after you've set up your interval, pressing the mode button takes you to the display selection. So we currently have the watch made to display graphically the climb, with each one of these dots representing 10 meters in height, and each one to the left or right represents 1 second for the first 3 minutes, and then after it, depending on the interval you selected. But there's another mode where pressing the Alt button, you can switch to the difference mode, and now when you exit, the watch on this screen is not going to display the graphical climb or descent, but it's going to write the difference between your reference point where you started off and as you move along the track. So to reset it, you simply press the adjust button, and it sets it up as the reference altitude, and then all the other altitudes are written here as the difference between that reference and the current altitude that you're at. But we're gonna set it up back the way it was. So with the Alt, you switch between these two. We'll set it up for graphical. by pressing the mode, but the adjust button, you exit this adjustment. So let's say you set up that it reads the way it reads. There are two things, actually three things that this watch can keep in its memory. So the first one is whenever you start the altimeter, it's going to start recording your maximum and minimum altitude and the ascent and descent. The ascent and descent is going to be recorded only if there's a difference of more than 15 meters. Under 15 meters, it's not going to register. And when it comes to the maximum and minimum altitude, it's going to look at all your measurements. So if you did a maximum altitude somewhere before, it's going to remember that as the maximum altitude that you've ever visited, and it's going to display the dates and what time you did it in. And there's a second option where you can manually record the altitude that you're at currently. So pressing and holding the Alt button, it's going to record there. You've just recorded this elevation and this date into the log memory of the watch, and it's going to keep it there, and you can look it up later. And the way it works is that this manual recording of elevation, the watch has the capacity of 30 of those 30 manual records. Okay, and the third function that it offers is the track log function. So you activate that by pressing and holding it even past the recording. So you need to press and hold the Alt button for more than 5 seconds. So press and hold, it's going to record, and you keep holding, and it says track. So now you've activated the tracking mode, where the watch is going to record this track that you just started, and it's going to record the minimum altitude, the maximum altitude, the total ascent and total descent until you stop the tracking. You stop it by pressing and holding this, and there, the watch just, you just press and hold again for more than 5 seconds, and it's going to set track end. And there, it stopped recording. Now these tracks are going to be stored also in the log memory, and it can store up to 14 tracks with all the data that I just said. And we're going to go into that mode in just a second. So the track log is going to record automatically for 12 hours, and then it's going to turn itself off, unless you turn it off manually like I showed. But one thing to note while it's recording the tracking, and I forgot to mention it, but let me just start the tracking again. There. Once the tracking is recording, you can see this little dot here blinking. And this dot represents first 12 minutes of the track. So when the next 12 minutes pass, so from 12 to 24 minutes, you're going to have another dot here. Then from 24 to 36 minutes, you're going to have another dot, 3 dots. And these dots are going to show up for each 12 minutes that passed of the tracking log, of the track recording. All the way, and when they complete the full circle, it's going to be 12 hours, and the watch is going to stop recording like we said, or unless you stop it manually like we said, holding this for more than 5 seconds. And there. And now we're going to go into the record or log data mode to see what the watch recorded and all the things that it can record. So you go with the mode button until you enter the record mode. Okay, so the first screen that it's going to show you is the automatic data that it recorded. Okay, so with the Alt button, you switch between different values that it recorded in this auto mode. So the maximum elevation that this watch has ever been is 374 meters, and it's been on March 13th at 8:59 a.m. So as you can see, it displays the date and time when it's been. Pressing the Alt, we go to the minimum. It's been to -11 at January 26th at 22:40. And pressing the Alt again, it did a cumulative ascent of 134 meters, and it did a cumulative descent of 48 meters. So this is actually cumulative from all the measurements that this watch ever did. And now this is the auto screen. Now we're going to move to the manual record screen that we did the second function that we did in the Alt. With pressing the baro, you move. Just a second. You move to the record screen. Okay, so here all the manual recordings that we did are stored. Like we said, you can do up to 30 here, and you also go with these two buttons, you can go backwards or forwards. So the first record was on May 23rd, and it was 117, so you can see 3, 4, 5. We'll try to find ours, which is the last. And there. This is it. May 28th at 2:06. So this is the one that we recorded. And as you can see, it can store up to 30 of these. Now we have 14 or 15. Okay. And the next one, you simply by pressing the bar, you go, now this is the total, the auto, and then we go to these track logs, and they're called MT 1, 2, 3. So as you can see, MT2, MT3. Okay, so let's say we went to the log tracking to the track number 3, and over here it displays the maximum elevation, and also pressing these two goes through different parts of this track log. So maximum elevation, minimum elevation, total ascent and descent. As you can see, these are 0 because at that track we didn't pass more than 15 meters in elevation. So as you can see, it was on May 24th, and this was actually me riding my bike to work. So it was at 656 that the maximum elevation was achieved, and minimum was at 637. And the difference between 134 and 122 is under 15, so the ascent and descent didn't record anything. And pressing the bar again moves to the next mount, to the track log 4, and we're back to the manual records. Now, to clear this memory, you can do two things. You have the manual clear one by one, so you select one that you want to clear, let's say number 4, you press and hold the adjust button, and there, it cleared it. And now you've cleared only that one. Or if you want to clear the whole, all of these manual records, you press and hold for more than 3 seconds, you still hold, and it says clear all. Okay, now it cleared all the manual records, and you're going to have all these hyphens. Okay, moving with the baro, you go to the total and maximum. To clear that, you also press and hold if you want to clear only the maximum. If you want to clear everything, you press and hold until it says clear all. And the same works here. So you go to the track log number 1, 2, 3. If you want to clear the number 3, you press and hold this. In the track log, you need to clear them one by one, apparently. Well, that's a shame. I thought you can do it just like on all those, but you can't. And that's it when it comes to the track log. And this pretty much covers all the functions that this watch has. And like I said, it's a wonderful watch, especially for someone who's actually using it for trekking and for mountaineering, because the functions are really designed for that. And it's a shame, although most people probably buy it because of their looks and everything, but it's great to see when the watch is actually used for what it's made of, for what it's made for. Anyways, thank you for watching. I hope this video helps someone, and if you like the video, please like and subscribe and share the video. Thank you, and until the next time, bye.